Hello and welcome back to Lesson 2 of the Masuda Ashi introductory course. We'll be going through several lessons which will probably take us about a month all up, and today we will be looking at 4D Masuda Ashi, 4D meaning the fourth dimension. What exactly do we mean by 4D Masuda Ashi? Well, most people are probably familiar with 2D and 3D, but 4D, the fourth dimension, is somewhat more perplexing when you hear about it for the first time. In simple terms, 4D is basically where we add the dimension of time. So the fourth dimension in our case is time. So let's now use the fourth dimension of time and take a look at the window into the future, which is one of the key features of the Masuda Ashi chart system. 4D Masuda Ashi real bodies are essentially forecasts of Masuda Ashi real bodies into the future. The window into the future, which we'll be looking at soon, lets us have a look at Masuda Ashi real body forecasts. This will be the main point of today's lesson. The chart that you can see here is for the stock 8763, Fuji Kasai in Japanese, which means Fuji Fire and Marine. And there is another function within the Masuda Ashi chart system called the buy-sell navigator. This is in the full-powered Japanese version of the 4D Fun and Simple Masuda Ashi chart software. We're currently developing a basic English version of the software, but it will not contain the buy-sell navigator in the initial phases. All we need to know at this point in time is that this small upward pointing triangle represents a buy signal from the buy-sell navigator, and that this downward pointing triangle represents a sell signal from the buy-sell navigator. I'm only showing this for illustrative purposes, but I think you would get the idea that if you had bought when the buy-sell navigator indicated a buy signal, and if you'd sold when the buy-sell navigator indicated a sell signal, you would have made this much, quite a handsome profit. And if you look at the Japanese candlestick chart, you can see that the share price has gone from here up to here, the corresponding point. So the next question is, well, how could the buy-sell navigator have predicted that this was a good point to issue a sell signal with reasonable confidence? Many of the Masuda Ashi features come into play here, and there are several that we'll go into in more detail in later lessons. Some of them include the 6-color pattern, the 6-color spectrum Masuda ratio, and of course Masuda Ashi shadows, which we touched on in our first lesson. All of these individual features require a lesson by themselves. As I mentioned, we'll look at those in more detail later. But one thing to keep in mind is that all of these Masuda Ashi functions or features are designed to support the predicting of the future. Obviously the 4D Masuda Ashi real bodies, the prediction of these is one of the most fundamental features of looking into the future. And the 4D Masuda Ashi real body forecasts are essentially based on the reading and interpretation of another feature within the Masuda Ashi chart called the predictor group of lines. Now these are the 4 lines that you can see here. There's a yellow line here, a green line, a red line, and a white line. This white line represents the latest point in time, so today in our sense. So normally we would read from right to left. The white line is the basis line. The red line is the line representing 3 days ago, and this is the closing price of 3 days ago, the red number here. The green line represents 25 days ago, and this 137 is the closing price from 25 days ago. You can also see the dates, corresponding dates here. And the yellow line here is from 75 days ago, so April 6 in this case, and the 134 is the closing price from 75 days ago. And we've already mentioned before that the Masuda Ashi chart comprises of these three Masuda Ashi real body lines: the short-term line, the medium-term line, and the long-term line. And when we are in an uptrend or a rising phase, the Masuda Ashi real bodies are colored pink, and when we're in a downward phase or a downtrend or a declining phase, the Masuda Ashi real bodies are this aqua blue color. So color is very important in the context of reading and interpreting Masuda Ashi charts, and this also is true with the four vertical predictor lines that we have here. So color, the Masuda Ashi chart system leverages the power of color to make charts more easily readable and easier to interpret, using the power of color to be able to instantly recognize trends, patterns, turning points, and so on. One other point to bear in mind is that when we normally look at a kind of typical stock chart, you'll have crosshairs that show the horizontal and vertical intersection, where you can trace along the time axis and the price axis of a chart. But if you look here, we've got the four vertical lines, the predictor group of lines here in the Masuda Ashi chart, and if I click the mouse here, you'll be able to see that the crosshairs for today, which is the intersection of the two white lines here, is also accompanied by, to the left, the red, green, and yellow predictor lines. And if you'll notice that when we move from left to right, the interval between the white basis line, the red line from 3 days ago, the green line from 25 days ago, and the yellow line from 75 days ago, these intervals and these positions may remain intact no matter where we move the mouse. Together, this group of four lines is called the predictor line group, and it is possible to gauge the future using these four lines. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail about the meaning or the significance or implications of each of these lines. That will have to wait for another lesson. But the main point to remember for now is that we can use the actual numbers that these lines represent. The 3-day line, this is the actual closing price from 3 days ago, from 25 days ago, and from 75 days ago. These numbers actually play a significant role in helping us determine or gauge the future of the Masuda Ashi chart values. Now, when we talk about gauging the future and predicting the future, we're not saying that we are able to predict what the share price will be tomorrow. Nobody can predict with absolute certainty what the absolute share price will be tomorrow. What we will be talking about is predicting the color of tomorrow's Masuda Ashi real body.